Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be explaining how the badge quest system works while reading the write-up I wrote about it. Today 9.31 came out, and it came with a lot of different exciting updates, evolutions, buffs, so on and so forth. However, it also released the very highly anticipated badge system, and the badge system is introduced to help alleviate some of the burden of playing solo mode. So, I just want to take the time to explain how the badge system works in this article. There will be a subsequent posting on the actual patch itself, excluding the badge system, as the badge system is quite long and intensive, and I want to give it enough time to give a good explanation. So, as I mentioned before, co-op mode has kind of reigned supreme in terms of Puzzle & Dragons because you have an augmented health pool, you have more actives, and it costs half the stamina. So a lot of players were feeling that solo play felt a little lackluster, especially when super hard dungeons were designed around the idea of co-op. As such, Gung-Ho decided to release this badge system that will alleviate some of the tension because it allows you to customize your team in any way you choose based on the various quests that you have completed. Now, I want to explain what all the badges do. So, the badges can come in the form of a plus 100 team cost, plus 1 second to orb movement time. A mass attack badge, so all your attacks become mass attack. The entire team gets a bonus of 25% recovery. The entire team gets plus 5% health, as well as the entire team gaining 5% attack. Furthermore, there's a skill boost badge, which gives your entire team 1 additional skill boost, along with making your leaders bind immune. And finally, there is a 50% skill bind resist, so that basically adds 2.5 skill bind resist awakenings to your team. Now, as I mentioned, this is only for solo mode, and you can choose 1 per team, but you can switch as you wish. However, the plus 100 team cost can be used in co-op, but the rest are unable to. So, in addition to unlocking the badges, you have various quests that you complete along the way, and when you do, you get bonus rewards. So, as seen in the screenshot here, you get a magic stone for increasing your box space to 30. When you beat Wednesday's dungeon, I think it's the lowest one, you get a King Gold Dragon, you get King Metal Dragons, Tamadras, you get pre-draws, PAL points, you get a ton of different rewards, and a lot of veteran players who have played this game a long time will actually have completed all the quests and simply be collecting all these wonderful rewards. However, if you're a new player and you're just starting out, this is going to be another fun aspect of the game because you see your progression improving in these quests and you unlock more rewards earlier on, and that's very helpful. So, to unlock these quests, you have to go to others, hit quests, and then do degree of difficulty. And then from there, it's just self-explanatory. You just choose where you want to look at and how you want to progress. You can just try and follow the path accordingly. So the rewards from the quests appear to have no expiration date and get put only in your mailbox when you hit the receive button. And this is important because in the mail update, mail will actually expire and be lost after 365 days. So you no longer can use it as an extra inventory space. You have to start opening them up periodically. So in this case, you can, I believe, unless Gung-Ho has something else up their sleeve, that you can leave these rewards in here and you collect them at your leisure. So, how will this impact solo mode? So, the main idea is that Gung-Ho's trying to find ways to make solo mode more appealing outside of the convenience factor because you don't require internet connection, you don't require a partner. So they want to try and make solo a bit more manageable, especially for players who don't have any interest in co-op. So, the badge system is very helpful because you can switch it out interchangeably. Unlike skill inheritance, the badge system can be changed at any time. Before you enter a new dungeon, you can change your badge as needed. So if you want to take the Bind Immune Leader badge for one dungeon, but the next one you don't, you can simply change it right there on the spot. You don't have to spend 2 million coins, collect tans, or anything. It's just there permanently. So you have this wonderful option. And that's great because it's more flexibility and just more ease of access to playing solo. So I just want to take this time to explain how all the badges work in a little bit more detail and why I think how they'll be important and when they'll be beneficial. So, the first badge you unlock is actually the plus 100 team cost, and this is huge because when you're starting out, team cost is probably the limiting factor when you're playing Puzzle & Dragons. 100 team cost essentially equals 200 ranks worth of, what was it, what's 100? Yeah, It's actually 100. I should change that, actually. It's 100 ranks of account rank experience. So basically, you gain basically 100 more ranks worth of team costs, which equals to 100 team costs once you've passed the friend list expansion. And this is great because a lot of things you pull from the rare machine have high team costs, and you can't use them right away. Whereas now, you're able to benefit from almost any member you want right away. And I wish I had this when I was starting up Pad, because I was using lots of weird little monsters or like funky teams with evolution materials. So the plus 1 second to movement time. Now, this is going to be possibly a cause of controversy in terms of how useful this is. So as with the time extend latents that came out, some people thought they were a godsend, and others thought they were just redundant because you can quote-unquote improve your combos through skill and not need the extra time and the band-aid it provides. However, some people need this time extend, as well as some teams. They just need this extra time to move your orbs. And most players don't have perfect teams that have all the time extend in the world. For instance, Kaede teams, they rely on lots of time extend to form their heart cross. However, not everyone has 3 or 4 or 5 Kaedes in their monster box. You may only have 1, and you have very little time extend if you don't have the perfect subs. And this might be a good way to circumnavigate this problem. It will help a lot because this is 2 time extend awakenings, so this is quite impactful. Teams that can benefit the most are like rainbow combo heavy teams, row-based teams, and heart crosses, because you have to like manipulate so many different orbs into positions that you might need the extra time. If it helps you, you should use it. Don't let other people influence you, because this is your game after all. Next up is the Mass Attack badge. I don't foresee this being particularly helpful outside of maybe farming some weekday dungeons when you need to mass attack various targets. However, it's somewhat redundant with most leaders actually forming a mass attack on their own, either through rows or 5 orb 1 enhance. Let me know if you find a use for this. I don't really see one at this time, but that could change. Next up is the total team's recovery is increased by 25%. Now this is a huge buff because that essentially equates to 1 additional combo being made every time you're trying to heal. Because the way it works is every combo match adds 25% more healing. And let's say you had a 4,000 base recovery team. Now you're going to be boosted to 5,000, and that goes up and up and up. And that's a huge difference because now with 5,000 recovery and you match 5 combos, you heal 10,000 instead of the 8,000 where 4,000 would have been the case. So this is a significant boost to recovery, and this is huge because once you can survive the largest reasonable attack in the dungeon, recovery becomes your most important stat because you have to be able to heal up throughout the dungeon. So by gaining 25% more, or basically 1 free combo's worth of healing, you might be able to survive significantly more attacks or significantly longer stalling times. And this is fantastic. I think this one will get a lot of usage. Next up is the entire team gaining plus 5% health. Now, 5% health is not as impactful in my opinion because it's not that big of a percent boost. Furthermore, it's kind of redundant when you play co-op as well. I'm trying to find uses for the skill badge that are like co-op, like beneficial outside of co-op. So with the plus 5% health, if your team has 20,000 health, you only gain 1,000 more. Not a huge deal. However, if it allows you to survive the next reasonable attack, like you've reached that next health threshold, it could be invaluable. Furthermore, if you're playing a heart cross leader, you essentially have up to 4 times more of the health than you normally would, because let's say you're playing Miru, you have 75% damage reduction. That equates to about 4 times the health. So if you're the same team at 20,000 health, it almost feels like you have 24,000. So you can survive a bigger attack. That's where I think the health will mainly come into play. Next up is the plus 5% attack. Now, I don't think this is going to have too much value for most normal content, unless for some reason you need to have a bit more damage, but that's usually not the case, because 5% is kind of insignificant. However, if you're playing ranking dungeons, this might be a big boon, because you want to try and hit that 40 million damage threshold, and this 5% might allow you to make it with, say, 1 less combo, or you might be able to like overcome various floors with less combos or less of your primary color orbs, thus saving time. So this is where I think the plus 5% attack will have the most values in ranking dungeons. Next up is the skill boost Awoken badge. Now, this gives you just 1 skill boost, and that may not seem that dramatic. However, if your team requires actors ready by a certain time and no stalling is allowed, this might alleviate that problem. So this might prevent you from having to like change up your team roster to something less ideal. Or you can use it in the ranking dungeons. For the same reason as that, you don't have to gimp your team. You could have your actors ready sooner, and you can go through the dungeon faster. I foresee skill boost and attack being used the most for ranking dungeons. Next up is the leaders being bind immune, and this is perhaps the most powerful one because it allows you leaders that normally don't have bind immunity to be bind immune. Now, a lot of top tier leaders are already bind immune. However, there are several that still are vulnerable to binds, and by gaining this bind immunity, you are essentially saving yourself a sub slot and a lot of headache, because a lot of mechanics will bind your leaders or bind certain cards, and if your leaders are immune, you can still have your damage multiplier. For example, Kaede, Sharius Fruits, and Xiangmei are top tier leaders, but they're vulnerable to binds. With this, you're able to become bind immune, have access to your multiplier and leader skill at all times, and that's hugely impactful because you don't have to sacrifice a sub slot now for a bind clearer. Probably the most impactful one, and I foresee this one gaining the most usage for the average player that does not have a bind immune leader. Finally, we come up to the skill bind resist of plus 50%. Now, from the wording, it sounds like you're going to gain plus 2.5 skill bind resist awakenings. And why it's 2.5, I'm not sure, because you only get 20% increments, so you'll end up with like a 90 or 110 or some other weird number. It's useful, especially on leaders that don't have skill bind resist. For instance, the newly released Sarasvati has no skill bind resist, or Raw Dragon, and those two leaders might get a lot of gameplay now in solo mode because they don't have to bring special subs that have double skill bind resist to accommodate their lack of leadership potential in the skill bind resist department. So it's niche, but it might be a lifesaver and allows you to use teams that you normally would not be able to run. Or for new players who are just starting out and they don't have all the perfect subs or even the awakenings at this point. So when you unlock the badges, you basically have to go through the various quests, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It says like beat X number of technical dungeons, beat that number of technical dungeons, unlock the reward. The rewards can sit in the quest menu indefinitely, it appears, and then you can redeem them as you see fit. However, if you decide to open up the dungeon rewards, for instance the Tan Infestation, you actually have it sit in your mailbox, and the dungeon doesn't start until you hit begin. But once you hit begin, you have 1 hour to play it, and then it will disappear and it's gone forever. So use it when you either want to dump stamina or you need something at a time that is more convenient for yourself. For instance, if you need something from, say, the Wednesday dungeon and it's Thursday, you just missed it, but you really are impatient, you could play the Wednesday dungeon right away, get your materials, and you'd be on your merry way. But just be aware that it can sit in your mailbox, it doesn't activate until you actually hit begin. That's what I think I wanted to clarify. So, in conclusion, the badge system adds a lot of value, especially to new players, because it helps fill in the gaps in their teams, and it also makes solo mode more enjoyable because you're kind of catching up to multiplayer's benefits. Now, each of the badges are unique, and it's up to you what you decide you want to use. You choose the one that will benefit you the most. I explained what they do, so hopefully you can use that knowledge to your advantage, and allow you to use the teams that you actually want to run, not the ones that you need to bring to counter certain mechanics that can be addressed through the Awoken badges. For new players, this is going to be exciting because you're kind of periodically clearing and unlocking new content as you play pad normally. And for veteran players, you're just basically gaining a ton of rewards all at once. So that's nice. Let me know what you plan to do with the badge system. Do you plan to play more solo with this? What do you plan to use for your various teams? And just let me know how you feel about it overall. So thank you for watching. You can read the post in the description below on my website. Have a mantastic day and happy puzzling.